Imagine for a moment that you are in your job and you're applying for a promotion. Oh snap, so is your colleague. And you started at the same time as your colleague, you have relatively the same experience as your colleague. You both have worked on a number of solid projects. More or less, you are both qualified for this promotion. Side by side, your resumes are shining, and there's workplace politics and other factors that I'm not going to get into in this episode. But for the sake of this subject, there is something that your colleague could have as an advantage over you. And no one teaches you this in school. It's more of something that you learn as you go along. But if you're aware of just how important it is, you can use that to your advantage. And that's why we're here. So it'll filter how you literally approach your everyday, and it could be the difference between your colleague getting the promotion or you getting a promotion. But beyond that, even someone moving up in a leadership position over you, it doesn't just help with work, it is also extremely beneficial just in life. And these are what I like to call, friends, as soft skills. So in this episode, I will talk about 5 key soft skills and give you some guidance that I've learned from some of the pros to hack the system. And I'll share with you how to develop them so that you can use these to your advantage. So there's a ton to cover in this space, and while this episode gives away a ton of information, I also wrote an ebook that covers even more soft skills with even more tips and scripts that you can follow, as well as practices and resources that can help you strengthen them, plus a 30-day challenge that puts all of it to the test. So you'll want to check that out. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. But in addition to that, I have a ton of other resources on imposter syndrome and cheat sheets on how to get through setbacks, things like that. So be sure to check all of that out. And of course, back to our point, in the throes of all that, I'll share an embarrassing career fail story of mine that is related to all of this. Hey there, I'm Melody Bose, your host of Jeans with the Blazer, a podcast about rewriting the rules of work and life. All right, so before we get into that, what do I mean by soft skills and how are they different than hard skills? So examples of soft skills are critical thinking, innovation, cooperation, leadership, and interpersonal communication. And those sound like very fancy words, but also a little vague, like leadership. How do you strengthen your leadership skills to be a leader if you're not a leader? It kind of reminds me of building your credit score. If you want to apply for a credit card, you need to have a credit score in order to get a credit card, but you need to have a credit score to get a credit card and a credit card to build your credit score. I don't know. I completely butchered that. But anyway, it's an endless cycle that I want no part of. So hard skills are things like they do teach in school, and their technical abilities like how to operate computer programs or be proficient in Excel, knowing how to use a camera if you're a photographer, things like that. But here's the thing, while one may wonder if you can study soft skills, you absolutely can. And they are important, and let's bring in some data to understand why. Okay, according to a report released by publishing company Wiley, the report captured 600 survey responses from HR professionals and hiring managers in the US, and 42% of HR professionals and hiring managers have identified problem solving as one of the top soft skills they're focusing on developing in their organizations. So organizations are working on developing those soft skills. That's a good sign. And 44% of respondents expect workers to need continuous training to maintain soft skills. 43% said soft skills and durable skills wane within 2 years. So it's something that you need to continuously train on, just like regular skills. So I'm going to get into these skills in just a bit more in depth. But first, story time. Okay, embarrassing story time. I am sharing mine, but I would love to hear yours. So I'll keep your name anonymous, but if you want to share a career fail, pull up a chair, trauma bond together, please do that. You can DM it at Jeans with the Blazer on social media or hello@jeanswiththeblazer.com. All right, here we go. So one thing and I'm hesitant to admit this, but one thing that I've always done, and this ties to the story, don't worry, but no matter what job I've ever been in since I started my career, even if I was happy in my position and not looking for a change, I've always continued to apply for jobs. And if I got a call for an interview, I've taken them, even if I went into it fully knowing that I wasn't going to take a job. So I know that this can be kind of a dicey subject to share, especially if whoever is tuning into this is an employer or a recruiter. I totally understand if you get upset at me for that, but saying, I could understand if you say that's not fair to hiring managers who spend time going through resumes, or if you're happy at your job, like that's not cool to your employer. You want to stay loyal to your employer. But here's some perspective that I would like to offer. Organizations will always, always, always do what's best for them and the financial health of their company. They have to, in order to give you a job, they need to exist. So another harsh reality is, no, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but almost no one is irreplaceable. And you could be thriving in your job. Yes, queen, meeting those sales goals, getting that bag. And then one day there are budget cuts and sorry, your role is on the chopping block because the company decided to go in a different direction. It doesn't necessarily matter how loyal you are to a company. Your company will do what's best for them. And I want to be super clear on this. It doesn't mean that your company doesn't care about you. No, like companies create benefits to keep you happy and listen to your needs. Most good companies should at least. But they will always look out for themselves. And that's, not a bad thing. It's just the reality of the situation. And that will most likely always be at the expense of you, not you as an individual, but you as the employee as a whole. Again, that's not wrong. But then what I would invite you to do is to look at yourself as an individual, like you are an organization. And by doing interviews, you learn how to communicate your strengths. You start developing a script and keep your accomplishments fresh. You get better based on the questions that you ask and how to respond to those questions. And essentially, you're doing market research on what's out there, what companies are looking for in your specific role, as well as how hiring practices are shifting. So there's things like technology and AI. You might not even talk to a human in your first job interview. You might be talking to an AI. I don't know. And then who knows? Maybe one day you'll get that call, you'll get that interview, and it will be for an offer for a dream role. And by that time, you've already had so much experience. You've already interviewed a ton, and you're ready to grow. You're ready to expand. Why wouldn't you? And now you've opened up an opportunity for someone else to come in and fill your role. So I see that as kind of a cyclical process. So I was leading this project that it was a huge project. And I had been working on it for months. It was this huge initiative with the company that I was working for, and it involved working with multiple teams, UX designers. It was very close to leadership too, because it was a small to mid-sized company. So I was working very closely with them. I reported directly to the CMO. So there were a lot of eyes on this project. No pressure. And I was getting ready to present this deck that I had created to walk through the project and its steps. And it was the first time anyone saw like a really big update for this project. So it was a big deal. It was in front of the entire company. So in that presentation, there was a short part of it where I was demoing something for the project to show its functionality. It was like maybe a minute or two where I had to swap screens from my work computer to my personal phone because it was an app. And it was on this huge projector, again, in front of the whole company. And in the middle of giving this demonstration, while I was sharing my phone screen, I forgot to turn off my notifications. And I understand this could have been like way worse now that I think about it. But within that 1 to 2 minute window, I got notifications from like LinkedIn, Career Builder, jobs.com about applications that I had recently submitted, and basically showcasing to my entire company that it appeared that I was actively searching for jobs. So that was horrible, very awkward. So while being on the hunt for jobs that you don't necessarily intend on taking is something I cautiously advocate for, maybe put a plan in place to not let your entire company know and give that away. Okay. All right. So let's dive into these soft skills a bit and move along with some examples. So soft skills for communication, this is verbal, written, and nonverbal. So obviously communication is more than just talking. It's about making sure that your message is clear, engaging, impactful across different mediums. Strong communicators, some qualities of them are they build trust, they influence others, and they get things done efficiently. So verbal communication is speaking clearly, confident, and concisely. It's tailoring your message to your audience and thinking, who are we talking to? For example, you would explain an idea differently to a CEO versus a new intern, kind of like just reading the room. Using storytelling to make your ideas more compelling. Just saw the Super Bowl. I only watched the Super Bowl for its commercials, Go Sports. But I really liked the commercial that had Harrison Ford in the Jeep, and he kind of gave a little dig at Ford at the end. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's like not super profound. Like he says some really like nice, impactful things. But that one stuck with me. So powerful storytelling. Moving on to written communication. This is writing professional emails, reports, social media posts, things that get to the point, hold attention, avoiding jargon, which I love jargon, or I love hating jargon, and making information easy to understand. So see, by listening to each episode and learning a piece of jargon, you are developing your soft skills. So win-win for everyone. Also knowing how to write persuasively for sales, marketing, or leadership. Now, nonverbal communication, this is understanding body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. This is using confident posture and eye contact to appear more credible. It's reading nonverbal cues to gauge others' emotions and reactions. Okay, next we have emotional intelligence, and this means understanding emotions and empathy. It's the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, both your own and those of others. And it is great for literally everyone, leadership, teamwork, and conflict resolution. So a part of emotional intelligence includes self-awareness, recognizing your own emotional triggers and biases, self-regulation, controlling your impulses, staying calm under pressure, responding thoughtfully, and having empathy. So being able to understand others' emotions without dismissing them or trying to fix them. This is also social skills, building relationships, handling conflicts, and collaborating effectively. And then we have adaptability. This is handling change and uncertainty, being able to embrace change and learn quickly and pivot when necessary. Strong skill. And then 4, problem solving and critical thinking. This is being solutions oriented, finding creative ways to approach issues rather than dwelling on obstacles. I have another episode where I talk about bouncing back from failure. That's a good one to check out for this. But also identifying problems before they escalate and thinking strategically instead of reacting emotionally. And last but not least, leadership and influence. Whether it's managing or inspiring others, it's not just about having a title and being a CEO or Chief Inspiration Officer. It's about making decisions and making an impact. So even if you're not in something like a leadership role, influence is key in persuading and communicating and motivating others. Those are just a few examples. There are many more, but you get the idea. Now it's time for Jargon Jar. All right, in each episode, I roast a common piece of corporate jargon that needs to stop, and we find creative ways to say things that we hate every day. So on this episode, today's jargon is "let's take this offline." Ugh. Okay, it's so classic. It's if you're in a meeting and you're having a discussion and the discussion gets real and then someone asks another important question that may be the right and appropriate forum to be asking that question, but someone just like panics because they don't know the answer and they drop in with a phrase like, "let's take this offline," almost as if it's a get out of jail free card. And we all know that really means, not always, but I don't want to answer this right now. And I hope you forget to follow up with me so I don't have to answer it. But instead of playing corporate dodgeball, you could try, "let's set up a time to discuss this in detail. I need more info. I'll check in after reviewing," or just be real. "I don't have the answer. I don't know, but I'll find out." If you've heard a piece of jargon lately that you would like to roast and you cannot stand it existing anymore, send me a DM at Jeans with a Blazer on Instagram or an email at hello@jeanswiththeblazer.com to get featured in an upcoming episode. All right, so let's get into how to develop these soft skills. And this, again, is by no means an extensive list. And if you want more, I've created a guide that has tons of tips and that breaks these down in depth that you can reference. I'll include in the episode notes. But let's get started. So communication, mastering active listening and clear expression. So we know strong communicators don't just talk well, they listen and respond intentionally. So how do we develop this? Tip number 1. Practice active listening. So sometimes, and I have the habit of this, before jumping in, someone says something and I'm already thinking about the next answer because I struggle with being impatient, and that's one of my toxic traits. But before jumping in with your thoughts, really take a minute to pause for 2 seconds, and after the other person finishes speaking, to give them that space to share what they need to share. It also prevents interruptions, and you're giving yourself a chance to really absorb their words. And here you can summarize and reflect back. So before responding, you can repeat back to them what you said and say, "So what I'm hearing is," and repeat back to them what they said to you to confirm their understanding. And maybe they didn't communicate themselves clearly and they say, "Oh, no, this is what I actually meant." It kind of helps bridge that gap of clarity. You can also record yourself speaking to identify filler words, nervous habits, or unclear phrasing, or words like or That's a fun one. All right, emotional intelligence. Empathy, social skills, all that good stuff. So how to develop emotional intelligence. There's so much to this, but we're only going to get into just a few. Observing your emotional triggers is a big one. When something upsets you, asking yourself what's really bothering me instead of reacting immediately. And this always gets dragged, but guys, journaling, it's the bomb. Writing down your emotions and just kind of giving yourself that time to process it is amazing. Just because if you have a strong emotion and you're writing it down consistently, you're building awareness that you have this, and that might make you stop and think of how you approach that next time you feel that. It's general mindfulness, and it helps you. It helps everyone. Another thing you can do in the spirit of observation is practice mirroring emotions. So if you observe your friend or your colleague's tone and body language, you can adjust your own in accordance. So if someone is, talking to you with their arms crossed, that could imply defensiveness, and you don't know what people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So maybe interpreting that body language to see how you can respond in a way that is maybe it's something you're doing, maybe it has nothing to do with you, but you can kind of be aware of that and react accordingly. Also, there's another fun technique called the name it technique. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you can name the exact emotion you're experiencing. Instead of saying, "I'm stressed," and just leaving it at that, you can say, "I feel overwhelmed because I have too many deadlines." If you assign something to that meaning, then that might help explain that emotion a little better. Okay, so adaptability. How to work on that. Saying yes to discomfort is a big one. One easy way to do that is, if you're not ready to go skydiving yet, you could volunteer for a task at work that you're not 100% confident about, but you're willing to explore in a space that allows you to grow. So this could be like public speaking or learning a new tool or program or leading a project. You could also try just doing something new every week, and it can be even as small as taking a different route to work just to kind of create those new pathways in your brain, or switching up your morning routine. All right, problem solving and thinking critically. So problem solving isn't just about fixing issues, it's about seeing opportunities where others see roadblocks. How to develop it. First is learning to detach yourself from your emotions. You are not your emotions, you are not your thoughts. But when you're faced with a problem, imagine that you are an outsider giving yourself advice to a friend. That provides clarity. And then how to develop leadership and influence in the workplace. Okay, so a big part of this is owning your work and taking initiative. Those are two separate concepts, but looking for ways to improve processes without waiting for permission. If you see a gap in your team, taking the initiative and stepping up to fill it or find another way to approach that solution really shows that you're, one, confident in yourself to be able to do that. And then also it can help build influence and respect for you among your colleagues. So that could be something like introducing new programs that maybe you've learned in another job that you could take to this one. And then you kind of build that trust where if others start looking to you for solutions, even without that leadership title, if you're working towards like a leadership role, that helps push you in the right direction of that. So another part of this is mastering the art of clear and confident communication. Again, we could go down another rabbit hole, but I think the most basic thing is being direct but respectful in conversations. Leaders don't tiptoe around issues. They get to the point. They don't fluff it up with jargon, hopefully. And if you have a point, be prepared to back that up with data and explain the why behind it. Why does it matter? And then you also want to use language that is inclusive and makes people feel heard and valued. So an example for this is instead of saying, I don't think this is going to work, you could instead try, I see some challenges with this approach. Have we considered XYZ? So it keeps the conversation focused on the issue at hand, but it also opens up the floor to invite others to share their perspective and their insights. Another thing is you want to be the person that elevates and lifts others up. Guys, there is room for everyone at the top. And giving credit where credit is due is something that's so important as a leader. It helps make people feel valued and seen and heard. And recognition, it makes people feel good. Why wouldn't you want to recognize someone else that did something really awesome? Sharing that gratitude doesn't take away from your own accomplishments, and a good leader is aware of that. And a final thought here that I'll leave you with this is pay it forward by mentoring and supporting your junior colleagues. One, coaching and teaching others makes you better in your own craft. And two, it's showing up with the energy and attitude that you would like to see reciprocated in others. So like I mentioned, there's so much to dig in here, and soft skills, we can go way deep. And I do. In my ebook that I created that has a ton of scripts, a cheat sheet, and scenarios that you can explore to help you navigate what all of this means and more, plus a 30-day challenge that you can put all of this to the test. So be sure to check that out, as well as a ton of other resources I have for you. And that's all for today. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys next time. Next time on Jeans with a Blazer. Guys, YouTube is an amazing channel for your business, no matter what your industry is or how big your company is. And once upon a time, I worked for a brand and started a YouTube. And within a year, I grew it to 20,000 subscribers. I did all this with very little strategy in the beginning. And in this episode, I'll tell you exactly what I did and why having a YouTube channel for your business is an amazing strategy for storytelling, for generating traffic, generating leads, all that stuff. And I'll also share how one video I created that started as a joke ended up being one of the most popular videos on the channel. It's kind of embarrassing, but whatever. That's a wrap on this episode of Jeans with a Blazer. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, a mindset shift, or just the push you needed, do me a favor. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave a review wherever you enjoy your podcasts. It helps more people find it, and it keeps these conversations going. And I love hearing from you. Follow @Jeans with a Blazer and tag me with your biggest takeaways, your latest wins, or just tell me what topics you want to hear about next. See you next time.